What is happening, guys? My name is Jamie and today we are reviewing Haken's new album, Virus. Haken are a very interesting prog metal band hailing from Britain. Now, I do really enjoy some of their stuff. Now, there's some albums that were a bit hit and miss, like Affinity had an absolutely amazing song called The Architect. I didn't really enjoy that album, but I did enjoy the latest album, which was Vector, and I just really loved how different Haken sounded. Now, Haken have certainly experimented their sound throughout the ages and creating masterpiece songs called Celestia Alexia, fantastic song, and not only that, the masterpiece of an album we all love, their debut album, The Aquarius, which overall was a huge concept album. Certainly there were so many different surprises, and Haken have definitely continued strongly. Although the sound on this album, Virus, has changed just slightly with a much more heavier tone. And when I say heavy, some of these songs are pretty heavy, like the single Prosthetic, which has an overall in-depth, gritty guitar tone. Times some thrashy elements, incorporating Ross Jennings' incredible vocals and a very catchy chorus. Although the song is very good, it still lacks a little bit because I would love the song to go on a little bit longer. The album continues to grow strong, and we finally get one of the epics called the Carousel. The Carousel is definitely one of the strongest songs off the album with so many different surprises along the way. Certainly it's got elements of that Haken vibe that we usually get. At times the proggy elements with the fast riffages and some really strong chord progression along with a catchy chorus, a really nice guitar lead along with some keyboard melodies, the really juicy stuff throughout the Carousel. Are so damn strong, telling a huge story. Now, I believe this album is again a concept towards the Cockroach King, and I won't spoil what the story is actually about because a lot of people haven't actually heard this album, but I really loved the Carousel of how different this song was for Haken. Now, one complaint about this album is at times where they step towards the generic prog rock side, where you definitely have heard the same sort of sounds from other bands, such as you could instantly recognize something out of Leprous, especially Invasion. Heavy hearts refuse to beat. Especially the song Invasion, which sounds something like out of Leprous, like the Bilateral days. I do really love that tone of Ross Jennings' vocals. Guitar riffs throughout that song are fantastic. But Haken really pushed the momentum towards Carousel, which leads on to the song The Canary. The Canary is an interesting song. It's a much more slower song. It feels like something out of the Affinity album where there were a lot of slow songs. And I do love how this song is positioned on this album, and it just really flows quite well. An equinox, the eyes will never meet. You try to save the world. His vocals are again absolutely fantastic. Love his dynamic range, and I really enjoy the nice solos you're getting throughout this song. The Canary Yellow is definitely one of the most interesting and enticing songs to listen to off the album. What is definitely one of the most interesting songs off this album, they have split one song into 5 parts called The Suite. It is the Messiah Complex. Now, this is certainly one of the ambitious projects by Haken, and to be honest, I was pretty impressed with this song. I really was. At times, some really nice guitar work and instrumentals are fantastic, not to mention incorporating elements of blast beats throughout some of the suite, incorporating really nice drum fills as well, with some really nice synth overlay along with a nice guitar solo. Definitely feels like one song. It feels like one song that is very cohesive and flowing. There are some chaotic moments throughout the song, some really nice solos, along with Ross Jennings' vocals are absolutely fantastic. Now, he does incorporate any harsher vocals throughout this album, unlike he did with Vector. He certainly uses his dynamic range. I just really love Jennings' vocals throughout this album. One thing I can say about Messiah Complex is at times some of these riffs do sound generic. They sound like generic prog. And what I love was also how unpredictable Messiah Complex was. And this has certainly made it one of the best Haken songs off the record. Unfortunately, the positive comments end here, where we get the last song, which is Only Stars. This song is a pile of shit. To be honest, I don't really enjoy this song. There's just not much that grabs me, and I feel that this shouldn't have been even on this album. This was a very poor decision by Haken to include Only Stars on this album. As I'm summoned hither. I don't understand why this song is on the album. You could have ended Messiah Complex, the song suite for this album, and it would have been so much pleasant, unlike Only Stars, which is definitely one of the weakest Haken songs I've ever heard in my entire life, and it shouldn't have been on the album. Complex Messiah would have been a perfect way to end off the album, but unfortunately we get Only Stars to end off the album, which in my opinion is the worst thing they could have done to cut off the flow of this album. But I digress. This album is a pretty good album by Haken. Definitely one of their best albums. It's certainly better than the Affinity album. But I really enjoyed this album. Ross Jennings has certainly improved with his vocals. Not to mention, at times this album does sound a little bit generic, like generic prog. Haken certainly put a twist. Certainly put a twist on the sound that makes this Haken album special. And for this album, I will give this a solid 8 out of 10. A very enjoyable album, a must-listen album if you're a Haken fan, but I feel that this album might divide some fans, where there are some new sounds on this album that some older fans may not enjoy. But I did actually enjoy this album. Comment below what you thought about this album. Do you agree or disagree with my opinions? I would love to hear your thoughts on this album as well, and I will see you in the next one.